Is Duke a better story than team?
I'm flanked by too much basketball genius to keep this long-winded. But watching the number one seed UVA team go out there and struggle in the first half against Gardner-Webb, you got to understand that matchups really matter, especially in the bracket system. So Duke is a great team. At any given time, they're going to have 3 of the top 5 NBA picks on the court. So you got to respect this team. And, you talk about one and dones. You talk about a younger core of a team. Maturity comes into play. You see that seed, even though this is the second round, you start to look at the seed and you start looking at the talent levels. We're human beings. You start to really look at a guy like, can they really compete? So I saw it at UVA, and we seen it with Duke. A scare is not alarming as long as you respond to that scare, and it's a wake-up call.
They got some weak links out there.
I completely agree with you, Jason. You look at that team, first of all, even coming into the tournament, we knew statistically they were the worst three-point shooting team ever that we consider a serious national championship contender. North Dakota State, not just UCF yesterday, North Dakota State. Did you watch that game?
Yeah, no, I did.
It was ugly for about 35 minutes until 25 minutes till they realized, okay, we're Duke, we got to put this thing away. I am totally on board with you. I just look at this Duke team, great individual talent. Zion, I feel like more and more they're relying on Zion. This guy had 32 points yesterday. Nobody else had more than 16. I don't know if they're going to lose this weekend. They are not winning the national championship, though.
Steve?
Well, you're my guy. It's an honor to be on your show. We're Indiana guys. I have 20 minutes from Ball State.
This is heaven for me.
but I don't know if I'm buying all of it. Obviously, I think Duke is a great story, but I did spend 2 days being unemployed. I got to go spend 2 days with Coach K and the Blue Devil program. And those 3 guys, it's not like UCF and Johnny, and I love Johnny to death. He's my guy. They've gone through the ACC. It's not like Johnny's come up with this miracle formula of staying in games. They've only lost 2 games with Zion healthy, and that was an overtime loss at home to Syracuse and a 1-possession game to Gonzaga. So you go through the ACC like they've done and all those things with Zion. He is so good. I think he's so much better than anybody else in college basketball, and they're not going to run into anybody else now protecting the paint like Taco Fall. And so you have the 7'6" guys gone. Duke is the number 1 team in the country inside the arc. They're also the worst team in the bracket still left of the 16 outside the arc. So yes, if you can make them become a 3-point shooting team, I think you got a chance to beat them. But that's a heavy load when you're saying, you're going to stop Reddish, you're going to stop Zion, you're going to stop R.J. Barrett. These 3 are easily the top 5 picks in the NBA draft coming up. So, yes, you've got to guard 3 guys, but they're really good. And Trey Jones is a guy that can orchestrate things at a high level, both offensively and defensively.
So I was fooled a bit yesterday, in your opinion, that UCF has a 7'6" guy. No one else does. But have teams been defending Duke in that fashion where they just acted like Jones didn't exist?
Right. And you may see that coming. Virginia Tech's only played them once. Yep. Virginia Tech beat them at Virginia Tech. So it'll be interesting what Buzz and his staff come up with after watching that tape, because it's really the first game where they were basically playing Trey Jones from me to you.
Yeah.
And
farther.
And it works. And it works. But the 7'6" guy is mobile. He changes things. He's a special player. And I don't think we give UCF enough credit. Played in a very good league this year, a 4-bid league. And they did a lot of good things. And obviously Dawkins had a tremendous game, which I'm very proud of for the Dawkins family. But I still wouldn't. I don't think there's anybody left in the 16 field they're saying, Duke's out. You're going to have to play really well to beat Duke.
And you really can't overstate what Taco Fall means in terms of a defensive challenge. When you're going offensively against him, he's top 40 on the planet in terms of height. Like, of all people that exist, of all the billions, he's top 40. And so you look at Zion's numbers against him, you see that he went out there.
1%.
I mean, that's the 0.1 of the 1%. He's 7 of 18 when he was on the court, then he's 5 of 6 when he's gone. It was just that simple. So now no other team can roll out that anomaly like that. I think it's going to be a little easier for them to go after it.
But do you think, though, even as great as Zion was, do you think at this point, though, I feel like the blueprint is not only that they can't shoot, I think those other guys are playing a little bit scared right now. You mentioned Trey Jones, R.J. Barrett, 6 for 15 yesterday. This stat stood out to me. Zion had more than half of Duke's foul shots yesterday, which means nobody's getting into the paint. Nobody's getting other guys to foul them. I just look at this team. I don't think they've been the same since that Zion injury. I think the other guys are playing timid. Zion's awesome, but at some point you got to have somebody else.
You got to believe in Coach K. I mean, that's when the coach gathers everyone, resets you, and says, hey, guys, we have great individual talent. I'm a great coach. I don't even have to say that. You get it. Let's bring this as a collective together, because it's hard to go out there and have repeat subpar performances when you have a coach of that magnitude.
But I think Aaron's point is, and Steve, I'll ask you this, Zion gets injured and goes out. Duke struggled. That can undermine the confidence of the rest of the team.
Absolutely.
And particularly when they're young, and it's like, man, we're just not the same without Zion, and it kind of exposes you, and maybe that's what they're dealing with.
Absolutely. I mean, everybody, they are dealing with depth issues. They're not a deep team. So you get into now the Sweet 16, you got to stay away from foul trouble. You got to stay away from any kind of minor injury, because you're really only playing 7 guys now, almost 6, and 3 of them are playing 40 minutes.
Yeah.
So, but I do think Trey Jones, I give Trey Jones more credit. I recruited the young man. I think he's special. And I think this
He
is
looked shook yesterday.
But this was the first time we kind of did the same thing. I mean, way back in the day with the Warriors with John Stockton, and John's a Hall of Famer, because he wanted to get the ball to Malone. He wanted to orchestrate things. He didn't want to shoot. And we kind of forced him into being a shooter, because not that he can't shoot, it's just not in his DNA. And Trey Jones is like that. I think Trey's going to have to do more offensively to help them, take some of that pressure off, but he really starts their defense. And getting Duke to play slow is not going to be easy for anybody.
All right, this tournament is a one-trick pony. It's Zion. And the rest of this tournament has just been favorites. I think yesterday all the favorites won. Basically, it's the top 16 seeds plus Oregon and maybe one. Is Houston a 5? No, Houston I think is a
Auburn was the other one.
Auburn's a 5 seed.
Yeah.
If not for Zion, we'd be taking a dump on this tournament. No Cinderella, no upsets.
Yeah.
Does this tournament miss a Cinderella?
Well, look, I think every tournament misses a Cinderella when you get something like this. We haven't seen this since 1985. Top 3 seeds all have advanced. So when you think about it, the story is David versus Goliath. We don't want to see Goliath versus Goliath. That's not the same story. So there is a lost rooting interest from the Cinderella aspect. At the same time, there is a moment where we want to see the best play the best. And if that's really what you want to say in flipping a coin, well, you got exactly what you wanted, and we haven't seen that in 30
You miss Sister Jean.
I miss Sister Jean, yeah. I miss a little of those runs. Yeah, I mean, it's the casual fan who gets invested with those.
I was going to say, what's wrong with Goliath versus Goliath?
Yeah.
That's my thing. Like, we're going to get LSU, Michigan State. LSU has a bunch of NBA guys. Michigan State, they're tough because we've seen what Tom Izzo does in the huddle. So those guys are mentally tough, right? And the winner of that game might get Duke. We might get Carolina, Kentucky, another regional. To me, I like Goliath versus Goliath. I don't know why college basketball is the only sport where we want the little guy. Like, nobody's rooting for the Brooklyn Nets in this upcoming NBA playoff. Sorry, no offense to Nets fans out there.
It happened.
I mean, maybe not the Clippers either, but...
Okay.
But,
there they go.
So, to me, I'd rather see Duke versus Kentucky, or Kentucky versus Carolina, Duke versus LSU, Michigan. That's me, though.
Well, the matchups are great. You're going to see really good basketball at its highest level. I think that's what the first 2 rounds are about. The first 2 rounds are about everybody's watching all day long for the upset and for the Cinderella. But the Cinderella kind of loses its, as you get into now where they're playing the best of the best, I want to see good basketball. And you're going to get to see, I think, 8 games that are at a high level. Oregon's a 12 seed. Mm-hmm. They were in the Final Four 2 years ago. They were beat up and hurt. You got a healthy Wooten now. Pritchard's playing confident, and he's one of the best point guards, I think, in the country. They're a very dangerous team. You got Kansas out of it. Kansas was set to play Carolina in Kansas City. I don't even think the sites matter now. I don't think there's any where there's a team playing close to home that they get an advantage. As I looked at the brackets, there's 16 teams left. It's all neutral setting. Throw the thing up. Great teams, great basketball ahead of us.
There's an energy lost, though, without a Cinderella. Let's just be real. When a VCU is going out there and you're seeing them in the Final Four, it's just, I guess the the common man, the guy next door, really rallies for the Cinderella because, wow, that team looks like it was just 4-year players, well orchestrated. They went out there and did all the things, all the intangibles. They checked those boxes. Right now, we have a fine point of one-and-done teams and basketball factories. That's what's really starting to happen, and I think we're going to just phase away from maybe some of the Cinderellas.
Steve, I want to ask you this, and I know this is not an ideal scenario, but this is probably the first time in your life or in the last 40 years where you just get to watch the NCAA tournament as a fan without being a true insider or looking at – what is this experience like for you?
I'm blessed. I'd never be on your show. If I was coaching, I wouldn't be on your show, so I'm blessed. But it's been good just to sit back. I've always said I thought it would be great for head coaches to, at certain parts of your career, you get to take a sabbatical. And you get to go, I was able to go watch Michigan State and Coach Izzo. I was able to watch Coach Cal at Kentucky, Coach Barnes at Tennessee, Coach K at Duke. I went down and saw my friend Dan Munson at Long Beach. And you get to see how they do things, whether it's a shoot around, whether it's day before a game, the night film session. And you just get to see, hey, you want to tweak this with your program, you want to do something different. It's like hitting a refresh button and kind of rebooting. So that part of it's been a lot of fun. And spend time with the family, it's been a great thing. But you get to this time of year, you start getting you get that itch pretty good to be back.